What if I told you that you can have 5,000 medium tanks by 39 and capitulate France by 37? My name is Ludi, and today we'll be showing all of our EU4 players how they can become Hoi4 masters. If we get 3,000 likes, I'll do another guide for Italy where we restore the Roman Empire in good old Ludi fashion by 1939. That's just 3 years! The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go for our research. We went for the light machine guns, interwar artillery, basic machine tools, and construction 1 simply because we need the bonuses from these two for the early war against the French, and these are gonna help us out after the war with the French. We're not going for any national focus as we need to get 50 PP in order to justify war on the French nation, and we're getting 1 extra PP by not having a national focus selected. When it comes to your production, have 2 factories on support equipment, 5 on towed artillery, 5 on fighters, and the rest of them set them on infantry equipment. Make sure you also make it so you get only 1 of each of these outdated submarines. We're going to be building only military factories in the provinces of Westphalen and Brandenburg because we start with the MEFO bills that gives us 25% military factory construction speed, and we will lose this effect after the war has begun. Assign the 24 starting infantry divisions by the border with the French and the other 6 divisions that are basically a mix-up of tanks, cav, set them up by the border here. I personally prefer to have the infantry units in a separate front from the spearhead units, but it is up to you what you want to do in this regard. This also means that you're going to have to use 2 separate field marshals. Fleet-wise, merge up your subs, merge up the main fleet, and start drilling them. And when it comes to your airplanes, disband the entire fleet here first off, and then we're going to make smaller air wings of 100 planes each, set them up in Berlin. Should have around 280 fighters, 4 tactical bomber squadrons and some to spare, and just a few close air support. Remember that we're not actually building these and we don't care about them too much, simply because we're going to get better planes shortly that are actually worth building. January 21st, 1936, we're going to start doing our conquest casus belli on the French. It is going to bring the world tension to 18. Now that we've done that, we can also go for our first focus, and we'll be going for the army innovation focus, of course. If you want, and this is optional, you can send some volunteers to Ethiopia. Send 2 divisions as well as air volunteers. Make sure whoever you send in charge of these divisions is good in the mountains or is a general that you really want to grind and get some nice traits on them. We can get Desert Fox from the desert provinces in Ethiopia. We can also get Mountaineer and a few other great traits. Our divisions have arrived, and we're going to set them up in these 2 provinces here so that we can start defending against the vile Italian pizza troops. It might also be that they lose the provinces to the north quite fast. If that's the case, no problem. Defend the provinces of Harar and Addis Ababa. That is all the provinces that you actually need. Once your planes have arrived here, you want to start splitting them up in equal sizes. So we're going to click D for 100 times until we get 20 squadrons of 1 plane each. The reason for this is because in Hoi4, it doesn't matter the size of your squadron. It simply matters how many squadrons you have when judging whether you can get an ace pilot or not. So the more squadrons we have, the higher the chance of getting an ace for our nation, which also means more war support. We're basically going to do the same trick for the Spanish Civil War later on. As our second focus, we'll be going for the treaty with USSR. Once your first 3 researches are done, you want to go for dispersed industry, electronical mechanical engineering, and as your third, you want to go for the land doctrine of a delay. You should have the bonus from your first focus, and this is going to give you plus 15 organization for your armies. Organization, by the way, if you're an EU4 player, is pretty much morale of armies. Our troops are holding strong in the nation of Ethiopia, but the Spanish Civil War is about to trigger, so I don't mind actually throwing this and taking them out of there in a month or so. One more thing we're going to do is we're going to make Mr. Sepp Dietrich here as a marshal, and we're going to set him up in charge of the spearhead army group. we're doing this because he actually has brilliant strategist as well as is an armor officer, so we actually can get aggressive assaulter with them that gives us an extra 10% breakthrough, and defensive doctrine that gives organization loss from movement minus 30% and +1 attack. This dude is meant to be a field marshal for this army. We'll be using our first 150 PP ongoing full trade. This is gonna give us a massive boost, 15% construction speed, research +10, factory output +15, and dockyard output +15. We are gonna lose a few resources as they are gonna be put on the market itself, but we can always trade back for these, and once we've taken the French land, we're gonna have a buttload of resources ourselves, even though we're still trading a lot. The Soviets have accepted our treaty, and that means we actually get 2 × 100 research bonus for armor tech and 2 years ahead of time bonus for the Panzer III, which means we will be basically researching this almost instantaneously. However, if you're playing a multiplayer, you really want to rush for the heavy tanks, which are considerably better, but for single player, mediums are more than enough. You really don't need more than medium tanks to deal with the AI. And do take note that after construction 1 is done, we want to go for the improved machine tools before construction 2, so that then we get the bonus for both Disperse 2 and construction 2 from the 4-year plan. Nationalist Spain declared war on Spain. That means we can start sending some volunteers on this front. Make sure you click air volunteers as well and send your 3 divisions. Have one of these squadrons in each of these regions, and then remember, press D continuously until they end up being 100 and 100 squads. Meanwhile, in Ethiopia, Mr. Ernst Ebenhard Hell here is quite enjoying grinding the traits. Now we can also start researching the Panzer III, which will definitely come in handy. We're gonna change this main infantry division and make a duplicate of this. Basically, click duplicate, name it whatever. I've done my division, the Wehrmacht division. I am gonna make it a 40 width division. I'm gonna add some extra artillery pieces to it so it has a little bit more punch. In most MPs, you're gonna be allowed 1 artillery piece per 10 combat width, but because this is not an MP, we can have as much artillery as we possibly can. I recommend that you go for this amount of artillery, basically 6 artillery brigades. Now that we have the new infantry template, we're gonna make some of our infantry units here the new Wehrmacht division template. 4 or 5 units should be more than enough. You just need some units to pack a little bit of a punch in the enemy front line. We're going to be declaring the war right now, and we also will be bringing back our planes as well as assign the planes that we already have in Germany by the border on the western German state here. We've managed to accrue quite a few aces in the meanwhile from the Spanish Civil War, so make sure you assign these aces for your air wings to get the maximum out of them. Also, don't go all the way into France or by the border with France for that matter. Keep most of your troops in this one tile over here, especially the troops that you intend to push with, whilst the rest of them keep them by the river here, as this is going to make it easier to hold those positions. We want the French to come into these lands and occupy them. The AI is ridiculously stupid, so it's going to attack you for a little bit. Afterwards, it's going to stop attacking you once it starts losing a lot of equipment, and that is when you do your counter attack. And for the time being, we'll be setting up the cavalry recon. We'll change this cavalry recon with the motorized recon later on once we produce motorized units. It would seem like their attack is dying down. They basically have lost 160,000 troops already trying to mush me over here, but it didn't work, and now my troops are going to be pushing into them. We also can do all of these focuses, and when it comes to research, I already started researching the Panzer IV. Be extremely careful once you do break through the Maginot line here. You can always lose all your troops if you get encircled yourself, so make sure that doesn't happen, and try and take out as many of the French units that were stuck in the northern pocket towards Köln. I have to say that a lot of the times they don't go all the way to Köln, but you can still trap them in the province of Bitburg. Once you have your path cleared up, all you gotta do is use your fast units to rush to Paris or Lyon and a few cities by the ocean, and that should should be more than enough to win this war. Remember that you still have super strong units compared to the base French units, and they will have lost a lot of their strength trying to hold you off. So use that to your advantage and pin them down with your units whenever you need to pin them down. Especially when your encirclement line here, or whatever you call this, gets very, very thin and very long. Be super careful. They might always just take one of these tiles and then screw you over massively. So don't let that happen. You don't need to worry about the Maginot line. I don't even recommend that you attack them. Let them take the troops out of there and bring them into the rest of France, since we don't want to lose troops for no reason fighting on the Maginot where they have so many defensiveness bonuses. I only lost 35,000 and they lost 365 as a result of using my troops wisely. You guys ever heard of the taking over France without actually taking over Paris tactic? Because that's what's gonna happen here. Let's see what their progress is. They're at 89% towards capitulation. That means one more city here in Brest. Yep, there you go, boys. France has capitulated. Alright, now I promised you guys I'm gonna capitulate France by 37. First off, let's actually take the French lands, right? We'll be taking all of this. Thank you very much, France. You are very kind. Now, second phase that we're gonna do is we're gonna start liberating nations that have been vilely conquered by the French. We're gonna go Senegal, Djibouti, Republic of Cayenne, I don't even know where that is, Kingdom of Morocco, Niger, Gabon, Madagascar, Lebanon, Syria, Mali, and now we click and turn, and as you can see, we get minus 25 world tension from liberating these countries around the world. Take note, if you take this one province in Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, which is in the New World, the Americans are gonna get really upset, and it's gonna make them a little bit more buff. Now that we've done this, we can go ahead and we can start continuing with the Anschluss. Now, in order to get the Anschluss, we need to have 500,000 troops in the field, and we only have 400,000. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna transfer all of our units here. We're gonna make them all Wehrmacht divisions. Take note, you also need to have 55 overall divisions in the field. We can go to Division Designer, create new, make a 1 brigade division, save, and we can make 100 of these units, spawn them in here, set high priority for equipment so these units get the first priority for the equipment, low priority for everything else so we can spawn these guys in. Now we can also start making some tanks. We're gonna start with the medium tanks. We're gonna make 5 medium tanks for the time being, and we're gonna start building our civilian factories all around Germany here. We're gonna prioritize the 80% as well as the 70% infrastructure. We also have a lot of other political power, and we're gonna be going for Martin Bormann, the silent warhorse right now. We previously took Ferdinand Schorner, which is a great advisor for the French war, as well as we took war economy. Remember the MEFO bills? Well, you have to pay up now. That means 20% consumer goods for 80 days. That means 80 days you're basically not gonna have any factories whatsoever, or you have 5 factories, which is basically nothing. Let's start researching the pack artillery, since we need some anti-tank weapons for what is about to come. And let's start restructuring our units here. Research slot unlocked, and now we can do the Anschluss. We can bypass the Rhineland because we, well, don't need to worry about the Rhineland anymore, and we can do the Anschluss because we spawned in the 100 extra 1 unit division. We are going to make these proper units. For the time being, we'll set them up to infantry divisions, and afterwards we'll change this to another template. And there you go. Now Austria is an integral part of our society. That means we can also start doing the demand Sudetenland. We can use the newly added factories to get more tanks. We have started setting up our units here. We have set most of them by the border with various countries that we will be going to war with eventually. Now that France is occupied, it's going to be a lot easier for us to deal with the allies once the main war starts. I'm also going to show you some standard tank divisions. The light unit divisions should be like this, but we're aiming for medium tanks, so we're going to duplicate this again. And we're gonna save it up. After we've saved it, we're gonna change these up to medium tanks, of course. And we're gonna save it once more. You really want to have 40 combat with tanks, but for the time being, and because we have very few unlimited medium tanks, we're gonna go with 20 with. And once we get more army experience and we research a few more things, we're gonna change this up to 40 with. All of our available special forces will be changing to the medium tanks, and we're gonna start ramping up the production of medium tanks. Switch to this up to buy 5 and put as much as this as you can. However, until mid 38, we will only be building civilian building. It's a good thing, by the way, because by that point we should have the Panzer IV, which is way better than the Panzer III. Also, we're close to 100 war support because of the ace pilot. The Soviets have also been encircled, and we're gonna push as hard as we can so we can crush them up over here. We have the attack from multiple directions bonus, and they are out of supply, so they've basically just died. That being said, we're gonna continue to push into the Spanish lines here. We want to finish this war after we get about 200 experience, but if it finishes earlier than that, it's not a really big deal. Just make sure you don't get your own units encircled and wiped out. A historic day for Germany indeed, and remember that you have a maximum cap of 500 air experience, so if your 1940 fighters are not done, you can use the available experience to either research, or you can use it to improve the current fighter planes that you have. I personally prefer to either go for more agility or for more weapons. If you decide to go for both, they kind of negate each other since weapons cancels the speed bonus and agility bonus that you have. We're gonna go for a cheap version here, cancel the obsolete one. We can also convert from stockpile, which is gonna increase the amount of planes that we produce per day by converting the old planes. Now we can decide whether we can make Slovakia a puppet state and take the rest of Bohemia, or we can just annex it all. I'm a greedy person, so I'm gonna annex it all, of course. Yugoslavia requests sale of airplanes. Make sure you give the old dive bombers that you have. Don't give them your nice fighters, as we're gonna need those. Panzer IVs are ready, and we're gonna do a few upgrades to these Panzer IVs before we put them into the production line. Now that it's upgraded, we're gonna cancel the old version of the Panzer IV and keep the newer versions available. Looks like the Spanish Civil War is also over, so our boys are gonna be coming back now. We pretty much can stop drilling our units as well. We have enough army experience for what we need to do, and we have used a lot of it also to research our land doctrines. The rest of the doctrines will be using the Army Innovation 2 bonuses. Hey, look at that! Focke-Wulf 190 in 1938. Alright, that means we can also start researching the Junkers U-88A. I highly recommend that you have mainly just fighter planes and tactical bombers. CAS have higher agility and a lower production cost. But the great part about tactical bombers is the fact that you can also use them for naval attacks and strategic bombers, so you overall can use them in pretty much any situation that you want. Fighter units, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna upgrade them to max engine. It's gonna give them an extra 16 agility, and we're gonna replace our Messerschmitt with the Focke-Wulf 190A. By August 39, you should have enough divisions to start the war. We got 151 divisions and we have 256 factories. We also have pretty much taken all of the advisors that we needed to take because we took Rudolf Hess together with Martin Bormann. It is vital that you take both of these guys, as together they give you a lot of PP per day, and once Rudolf Hess does his famous flight, you can just change him with somebody else. You should have a lot of extra PP because of him. We also are going to switch over to extensive conscription as we need the manpower. We're back to 31,000 manpower because all of our troops are in the field now, and after synthetic rubber we'll be going for Danzig or war if we go for a standard historical game. One more thing to note is the fact that you should always make a secondary 40 width division type. You're not going to be able to make too many of these units because they're going to be really expensive. So it's better to make 4 artillery and the rest just infantry, as these are considerably cheaper. That being said, your army should be led by the tanks. So we have 10 medium Panzer brigades here. They are for the time being 20 width until we finish the Western Front. And afterwards, before we start the Eastern Front, we're going to switch them over to 40 width. We also basically only focused on fighter 2s and medium 2s. Most of our infantry equipment is from nations we've annexed, and only a limited amount of our divisions are actually Wehrmacht divisions. Majority of them are regular 20 combat width template. You will have to set a lot of these 20 combat width by the Atlantic coastline after you've taken over the Netherlands and Belgium, and the ones in the east you can just use later on to attack the Soviets. You can also accept the Italians, as they will be a great ally. Everybody knows in the war. A standard mountain division I recommend you go for is 20 with 2 artillery brigades in this division to pack a little bit of extra punch. Since this is a special unit, you will not have too many of these, so make sure you set them in mountainous provinces. Most of my mountain brigades are set by the border with the Poles in the south, where they have the Carpathian mountain range. We are 10 days away from researching the second tactical bomber, and the great part is that because we've actually done the tactical bomber effort, we can start researching the Junkers 188 4 years ahead of time. That means by late 41 we should have the 44 tactical bomber. Similarly, we'll do the Panzer once we've done the army innovations. Actually, I should have done the army innovations instead of a synthetic rubber, but because it's a single player game and nobody's rushing me to attack Poland by September 39, I don't mind waiting for another 70 extra days. In fact, I prefer it because the Soviets are going to be a little bit stronger and as such a little bit more of a challenge. And we are pretty much ready for the war now. We managed to get another 8 full divisions of medium tanks and even some half-strength medium and light divisions. Altogether, we have around 5,400 medium tanks and 1,500 lights. If you guys want to see a part 2 for this where we show the Barbarossa War, leave a like. 3,000 likes for Italy guide and 3,500, let's say, for part 2 of this Germany guide. Also, check out my Twitch channel. I would love to see you guys over there. Link is in the description. And I want to give a very big thank you to all of my channel members, Patreon members, as well as my Twitch supporters. I really wouldn't be able to do this without all of your support. You guys are absolutely amazing.